I like watching movies, and when movies go well, I'm really happy. I don't have any complaints. I just marvel at how perfectly executed the plot is, the story is, the narrative. But there are times when movies fail, and that triggers another part of my mind, and I start wondering, why did this fail? How much potential did this have? What could have been changed to make it succeed? It's like a rewrite. So I'm going to make a video where I rewrite part of Star Wars. Now, I didn't like the prequel trilogy. I thought it hit all the key moments, but I thought it was executed very poorly. And it was more like an audition for Industrial Light and Magic, like George Lucas wanted to show what his special effects team could do, more than telling a good story. That's how I look at it. It ticked the necessary narrative boxes because we got Anakin in the suit, but the rise of Anakin, the fall of Anakin, and then Anakin getting in the suit, it just wasn't compelling at all. And then it added things to the lore that I didn't think improved the overall story of Star Wars. Now, the sequel trilogy, I'm really torn because I like about 40% of each of the sequel films. And I hate about 60% of each of the sequel films. And as each film comes out, it's obvious that they didn't have an overall plan, and then the ending just becomes nothing. And you can see it in the box office. The first movie made this much, the second movie made this much, and the third movie made this much. That shouldn't happen. The third movie should be the culmination of what you've been setting up. And it was just horrible. Horrible. What could be done to salvage this trilogy? Well, one thing I looked at, since it seemed like there wasn't any plan going in, this strikes me as improv. And improv comedy, here are some rules of improv comedy. I'll just hold it up. If you want to pause the video and try to read them, you can go ahead. But I'll go through them. I'll go through them myself. Rules of improv. Number 1, say yes and. So basically, when somebody else comes up with an idea, you have to take it and add to it. You say yes and. You don't say no. In the third film, J.J. Abrams said no. In the second film, I think Rian Johnson took a few of the things and said yes and tried to go to the next step. Basically, Rey meets Luke on the planet, and then what happens? The First Order's entire base planet, and I'm assuming most of their forces, were destroyed. And then what happens? I think we can see that J.J. Abrams was saying no. Now, the second rule here is add new information. I think J.J. Abrams didn't add new information, really. He just said things are what they are so that he could execute how he wanted the story to go regarding Palpatine's return. He didn't really add anything new. He tried ham-fistedly at character development, but nothing new added. The second movie, The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson added new information. Sure, I think he did. And I'll get into that later. Rule number 3, don't block. J.J. Abrams blocked a lot in the third film. I don't think Rian Johnson blocked anything. He just didn't pick it up and carry it. He picked up a couple of things and he focused on those instead. But he didn't block anything that Abrams did in the first film. Number 4, avoid asking questions. The first movie, Abrams asked a lot of questions and didn't give any answers. So that's a very poorly written story. The second film, Rian Johnson answered a couple of those questions. Who are Rey's parents? No one special. Who is Snoke? He's a Dark Force user. We get to see him a little bit. Rule number 5, use the moment. Play in the present. Rian Johnson, one of the themes in The Last Jedi was, forget the past. Don't worry about the past. Kill it if you have to. You know, what's happening now is what's important. And there are aspects of Jedi tradition that are frowned upon in The Last Jedi. and I think rightfully so. So we have the First Order tearing children away from their families and raising them to be stormtroopers. We have the Jedi tearing children away from their families and forcing them to be Jedi Knights and never feel love. Luke mentions this. The Jedi were doing things wrong, and they were blind to what was going on around them. So I think letting go of the tradition, letting go of the past, that was a big theme in The Last Jedi. And I'm all for it, because J.J. Abrams is all about recycling, and especially The Force Awakens. Horrible. And then there are a few other rules, but rule number 8 on this list is change, change, change. So you have to keep progressing, you have to go in new directions. There are setups and there are payoffs, but you have to change. You have to do something new. You have to expand on what has come before you. You can't just repeat what came before you. So looking at these rules of improv and looking at what Rian Johnson set up in the second movie, The Last Jedi, what can we do for a third film? Well, here is my rewrite. Now, I have The Rise of Skywalker Visual Dictionary, and on page 24, they kind of rehash what happened in the previous film. And this is on the planet Ak-toh, and we see this mosaic right here. It's kind of half black, half white, and there's some white in the black and some black in the white, and in the center is a Jedi with a lightsaber. And this is not really talked about in the movie. It's shown in the background of a couple of scenes, but it really caught my eye, and I wanted to know more about it, so I looked it up online. And this is the mosaic of the Prime Jedi. And Ak-toh is the original planet where the Jedi Order was established. So the original Jedi were understanding the Force, using all of the Force, balancing the light side and the dark side, learning how to control their emotions and make use of their emotions. And later on, some of these Jedi fell to the dark side. They became what were called Dark Jedi, and they were taken in by the dark side, the anger, the fear, those darker emotions, and couldn't control them enough. And that was very tempting and very powerful. So then there was a kind of a schism in the Jedi Order. So then the Jedi became light side only and abandoned those emotions and kept them in check. The Dark Jedi became the Sith, and they really held on to those emotions and used them to gain power. But we have the Prime Jedi. So Luke went back to the original planet where the Jedi Order was founded and was reading the old books, the books written before the schism, the books where the Jedi were the only Force group that was organized, and there was no Sith yet. And they were learning how to control all aspects of their emotions. And I think Luke learned that this was a more valuable path to follow. He had failed to control his own emotions, and that had led to the problems with Kylo Ren, with Ben Solo. He realized that the Jedi were wrong, and he was abandoning all of that. So then we have Rey, who's conflicted and hasn't learned to control her emotions. She's not a Jedi. She didn't really have any teacher. We have Ben Solo, who became Kylo Ren, who grew up with this legacy of being related to the Skywalkers. His grandfather, Darth Vader, his uncle, Luke Skywalker, his mother, Leia, and then his father was a hero, Han Solo. And probably living in their shadows and the pressure of that legacy might have been frustrating. And then Snoke was able to draw him to the dark side. So right here we have this yin-yang symbol, white and black, intermixed, balanced. And the Jedi gave up that balance, and the Sith gave up that balance, but that was how the Jedi started. Now, moving on. This is from Star Wars Rebels. This character is called the Bendu. Now, Bendu is not light side, not dark side. He is between. And he's very powerful. I'd say he's more powerful than Palpatine or Vader or Luke. And he is not light side, he's not dark side, and he laughs at this. This came out on September 24th, 2016. Star Wars The Force Awakens came out in 2015, and The Last Jedi came out in 2017. So this is already established before The Last Jedi came out. We have Bendu in the canon established as something that's a Force user, but not light side, not dark side, very, very powerful, very, very ancient. And this is established before The Last Jedi came out. After I saw The Last Jedi, and I ignored the 60% that I didn't like, my takeaway was, Kylo's going to leave, because there's no reason for him to stay and run the First Order. And Rey's off with this tiny group of survivors of the New Republic rebellion or revolution, whatever they call themselves, the Resistance. And the New Republic, all of their planets, 5 planets, were destroyed, and most of their fleet was destroyed. Most of their military forces were destroyed. The First Order, their main planet, that Starkiller base, was destroyed, and I'm assuming all of the soldiers on it, all of the military infrastructure and equipment was destroyed. So then we have Snoke and his armada chasing down the last remaining Resistance ships in The Last Jedi. The Resistance ships get wiped out, more or less, but Admiral Holdo uses a lightspeed ramming technique and really devastates the First Order's fleet. So what do we have at the end of The Last Jedi? We have Rey with the books that Luke was reading and the broken lightsaber that she got from Luke. Or from Luke, I guess. Luke didn't want it. We've got Kylo Ren / Ben Solo freed from Snoke. He killed Snoke himself. He doesn't have any teacher or influence on the dark side anymore. But he has no reason to stay with the First Order. And the First Order has been devastated. The Republic has been devastated. So what do we have? Lawlessness. We have maybe the galaxy fractured and different military groups, vying for isolated power. Nothing is unified anymore. Maybe First Order remnants scattered out here and there, trying to make up their own little dictatorship zones. The New Republic, what's left of it? There might be free planets or independent planets, but there's no Republic anymore. So what can we do in a third movie? Sorry to interrupt the video, but I have a favor to ask. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the thumbs up button. If you have a comment, I'd love to read it. If you know someone who might enjoy watching this video, feel free to share it with anyone you like. And if you want more content like this, please consider subscribing. Now, let's go back to the video. Rey has no teacher, but she can be visited by the forced ghost of Luke Skywalker, who died at the end of The Last Jedi. Ben could still have a teacher. He could have an influence. He could have Anakin Skywalker whispering in him, trying to communicate with him, but not very strongly, trying to communicate with him about coming back to the light. In the first movie, he said, he's talking to Darth Vader's melted helmet, and he is in contact with the Force ghost of Anakin. Now, I'm ignoring everything in the third movie, okay? And then Rey has Luke, who's giving her advice. Now, Leia, Carrie Fisher died between films. So they could have her die. Princess Leia died. Maybe the injuries from being in space were too severe and she could recover enough, but maybe she died as well. We have Kylo by himself. We have Rey by herself. And they still have that connection that they had in the second movie. So Rey thinks she's got to get Kylo and keep bringing him back to the light. That's why she went there. And without Snoke influencing Kylo, he has no reason to bring her to the dark side. He doesn't want to be on the dark side, but he's kind of hooked by it. So what we have is maybe some people trying to reestablish a peacekeeping force so that they can rebuild the New Republic. And bringing in support from independent planets. That can be Finn and Poe, Rey and BB-8. I'm going to leave Chewbacca with Finn and Poe. We have Rey and BB-8. Maybe Chewbacca could go with Rey because he knows Anakin and might have a grudge because Anakin killed Han Solo, his father. Chewbacca knows Ben. And Chewbacca might have some more beef because Ben killed Han Solo, who was his father and Chewbacca's longtime friend. But also Chewbacca has known Ben since Ben was a child. So that might be a very complex feeling. So anyway, we've got Rey and BB-8, potentially Chewbacca, looking for Ben. And they find Ben. And they have conflict. And Rey is hopeful and tries to bring Ben to the light. And Ben is full of anger and fear and hate and regret. But together, with the teachings from the old book, with the influence of Anakin's Force Ghost, with the influence of Luke's Force Ghost, they become, which is established in canon, gray Jedi. Jedi who walk the path between the light and the dark. Jedi who balance all of their emotions successfully. They return to the teachings of the Prime Jedi, the original Jedi group. And they become a new force. And they start to recruit force users that they can train in this new way, which is actually a very, very ancient way that was abandoned. Maybe we can even have them visit the Bendu and put him into the films. And then at the end of it all, Ben has completed what his grandfather started. This is mentioned in the first film, but never explained, because J.J. Abrams just likes to ask questions and not give any answers. Well, here's an answer. Ben Solo finishes what his grandfather started, the return to the light, and redeems himself. So then Rey and Kylo, Rey and Ben become this new group of Force users. And we can use the title. We just have to change a little bit. The Rise of Skywalker? No. Rise of the Skywalkers. And the term Skywalker can refer to this new group of Force users who are not Jedi, they're not Sith, they're not light, they're not dark, they're walking between, as the Bendu does. And they're more powerful because they can utilize everything. That's what I hoped would happen in the third movie. That is the ball that Rian Johnson left on the field. And according to the rules of improv, say yes and, pick it up. Add new information. Don't block. Change. This is the missed potential, the failed opportunity. We could have established a new direction for Star Wars. The Skywalkers. Rise of the Skywalkers. What does that mean? What an enigmatic title. But the Skywalkers are a group that Ben and Rey form, which is between the light and the dark, as established by Bendu. Incredibly powerful, but very, very difficult. It is a constant battle to balance and control all of those emotions and not be pulled into the darker side, which caused the schism long ago that wound up forming the Sith. Anyway, that's my rewrite. I'll just take that one point, that mosaic on the floor in the background behind Luke in a couple of scenes, and I'll spin that off and make a whole different end to the sequel trilogy. That's my rewrite. If you think it's a good idea, let me know. If you think it's a bad idea, let me know. So I will end this video now. That's my rewrite of the third movie of the sequel trilogy for Star Wars. The film we never got. The film we should have gotten. The ball was on the field. They just had to pick it up and carry it. And if they'd sat down and mapped out where they want to go at the start, we wouldn't have had this fiasco that was the failed sequel trilogy. It got a lot of money, but it should have gotten a lot more, and it left a bad taste in most people's mouths. If you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to get there. But Rian Johnson left enough that they could have made something I think would have been beautiful and interesting and unexpected, and left the future open for something that we're not ready for. Wrap up the Skywalker family saga, but open up the Skywalkers as a group so their legacy can continue. Thank you for watching. See you next time.